how many of you have known someone that's been involved in a shooting?
You're not gonna go to jail. You're all right.
Okay.
Well, one of the most extensive studies on post-traumatic stress disorder in the community was done here in Atlanta, and it found the staggering statistic that of those who live in low-income areas in this city, 46% suffered from PTSD. That is a rate much higher even than soldiers who've seen war.
Most people associate post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, with American troops returning home from war. But when you look at communities like this, they're suffering from the same thing.
Researchers say the levels of PTSD in US inner cities are comparable to those in refugee populations around the world, but that here it goes unrecognized, leaving many to cope alone with the impact.
That up to 40% of urban poor in America are dealing with PTSD. And how many people have seen someone get shot?
Up close?
The fact that that child had to clarify the murder question will never not be upsetting to me.
It's like everyday life. That's the type of environment we're in. I still think it's wrong. Like at the end of the day, we're gonna feel it because we're human. But after a while, it just get like another person died and like it's regular. It's like you adapt.
So you were 7 years old when you were
I
shot?
was 7. You just gotta be like, dang, that's sad. You can't be like, wow, wow, wow. Like, it's too many wows.
Every day I hear gunshots, like, you know, during the night, during the day, it really doesn't matter.
There was shooting, 2 guys dead, 2 more hurt.
2 teenagers were shot outside a busy fast food restaurant.
Drug use, gang activity, shootings, drive-bys. You know, there are things that are dealing with in which our average kids may not have to deal with.
Weeks ago, we had about 6 shootings in one day. I mean, it was all starting at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Could you describe some of the symptoms of the violence that you've seen, what people would probably call PTSD?
I mean, you hearing somebody take their last breath? That's a sound that never leaves you.
Research by the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found more inner-city children suffer from PTSD than soldiers returning from war. And in communities with high rates of sufferers, it can become a serious public health issue. Right now, he's making sure students make it out of school and away from Death Valley safely. When these kids step outside of school, what are the risks they're taking?
Well, first, them getting killed and them getting robbed. Them 2 right there. You know, normally it would be droves of people just hanging out when they get out of school. So now we make them leave so they want to stand on the corners and be targets for somebody to come through and shoot them. As you can see, there's not no kids hanging out on the streets. They getting where they have to go because I guess these last shootings that occurred, they kind of like stayed on their mind like, man, I don't want to die today.
That's ridiculous and sounds straight out of the plot of Battle Royale. And unlike people in the military, none of these people enlisted for that. And they're certainly not getting compensated for it. Imagine having to put that into your plans for the weekend as a kid. Like, wanna go play a sports or video game? Nah, I'd rather avoid getting murdered or just avoid witnessing one. You know, kids are smart, they're aware of what's going on, they have social media, and, you know, they know about the many cases, including Breonna Taylor, where you're literally not safe in your own home, particularly if you're black. And this type of lifestyle at such an impressionable age matters. Just listen to
Jose Vasquez. He was best friends with Eric Martinez, the student killed in March.
This happened like a few weeks ago.
What happened?
They ran up to him, shot him 7 times in the back, shot his homie in the leg, and then shot him in the head.
But he says he doesn't like talking about his pain. He prefers to numb it. Why do you smoke so often?
Well, I smoke because Lil Ball, like, I be going through some problems.
So smoking helps?
It helps me forget about it for a minute.
Ever have trouble sleeping, or do you ever feel like you have flashbacks of violence that you've experienced or seen before?
It happens once in a while, but it don't happen all the time.
But you do experience flashbacks and nightmares
Yeah.
every once in a while. How does that make you feel?
Like, I can't feel no type of way about it, really. Like, it happened already, so what can I do about it? It's a memory. I can't change it.
Is it hard to stop thinking about it sometimes?
Yeah, it's always hard to stop thinking about it. You can't just see something and then forget it in an instant. I've seen people run up to each other, shoot them over stupid stuff. I've seen people shank people over because they was tagging on walls. I've seen people get thrown out their car, punched out. I've seen a lot of stuff.
Have you ever seen someone get killed?
But Lil Bo, I don't want to talk about that.
You don't want to talk about it?
I don't want to talk about
Why don't you want to talk about it?
Because Lil Bo, like, I just don't want to talk about that.
Eric, your friend that you lost recently, he was killed. What happens now? Do you know who did it? Do you know what's going to happen now?
I'm not too sure, because like I said, people is making rumors and stuff. They telling me a lot, and I just don't know who it is.
What will happen when you find out who did it?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
When you look at how the rest of the developed world fares when it comes to gun murders as compared to the US, you start to see how many more here must be touched by violence.
Look straight at me.
Unfortunately, only recently is the idea going around the medical community, but it might be too little too late. PTSD is already affecting our communities today. PTSD puts your body into a panic state, and in this state, your body produces a stress hormone called cortisol. And cortisol has a toxic effect on the body over time, leading to one big distinction that I want to make is the difference between PTSD and CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. The big difference is with CPTSD, it includes multiple traumas over a prolonged period of time. This allows for the diagnosis to include structural racism, police abuse, transphobia, domestic violence, living in a violent neighborhood, which can help us get a better understanding of CPTSD's effect on our community. Symptoms look like
in a neighborhood, they might hear maybe a car backfiring, and it sounds like a gunshot, and they might have something like a panic response. So they might have increased sweating, increased heart rate response. On a clinical level, what we call that is hypervigilance, is this inability to feel safe. So their brains grow up faster, their biology grows up faster. Gunshots and this violence in the street is something that they're adapting to, and their brain is adapting to it as well, and we can see that on the imaging.
In effect, in these neighborhoods, children's brains are measurably growing up faster because of what they're exposed to. But that affects their ability to learn and makes it difficult for them to build relationships, makes them more susceptible to depression and to drug use.
The adrenaline that's flowing, the cortisol that's flowing, the fight, flight, or freeze kind of reactions from our reptilian brain are operative all day long, really. You see it in our classrooms, you see it out on the basketball court, you see it on the street.
Someone looks at these kids and they're like, oh, they're angry, or they're violent, or they're not interested in learning.
Those kinds of characteristics are the symptoms of something deeper, of a deeper pain or wound. Why is somebody restless in a classroom and can't concentrate? There's all sorts of dynamics that are happening neurologically with that student.
Good point. And another distinguishment.
Unlike soldiers who come home from war and now they no longer are in that dangerous environment, a lot of the children in this study are still living in that dangerous environment.
And that brings us to an important distinction: CPTSD versus PTSD. The difference is prolonged suffering. The expanded definition also includes victims of domestic violence, abuse, living in a violent neighborhood, police abuse, racism, transphobia. The list goes on longer than Meghan McCain's hard-on for her father. Listen to this family describe an incident.
Started shooting, and then my mom came in and told us to get on the floor and get up until it stops. And then it stopped and one person died and the police came.
Like, I even witnessed my kids getting off the school bus and, you know, we hearing gunshots from the next complex over. It's hard for me to go to sleep because sometimes the gun violence, like the guns going off, I can still hear them sometimes like ringing in my ear.
Remember cortisol? How can we be expected to compete in a fair society when this is what marginalized people have to go through on a daily basis? In the Journal for Traumatic Stress, they did a study of 152 children from a low-income background, and what they found was that 20% had experienced one type of trauma or adversity, 22% two, 11% three types, 17% four types, and another 18% experienced 6 or more of those types of trauma. Overall, what they found was that childhood trauma accumulates and significantly increases the effects of trauma on the person as they get older. So there is a positive correlation between the number of adult traumas and the number of childhood traumas and the symptom complexity. When you factor in the experiences with drugs and violence that people are exposed to just by virtue of being poor, basically, shit adds up.
I've seen everything, you know what I mean? I done seen best friends die in front of me. You know, I done seen people get killed, people hurt, beat. I done seen it all. You know, so there's nothing I didn't see. I seen it all.
And how did that affect you? Like,
it made me numb. It made me numb to everything. You know what I mean? It made me numb to everything to where I was like, this was the norm. When you don't know no better, you know, you think it's normal. And that's how some of the kids get involved with it. They think it's normal, but it's not.
We have to think about mental health differently. Listen to Phil put far more eloquently than I can the impact that mental health has all the way through adulthood.
See, what I don't hear is, Phil, you look like somebody that lives with depression and anxiety. Phil, you look like somebody that was suicidal for 15 years, every day, 5 to 6 times a day. Because see, here in America, when we think about mental health, we think about the homeless man who's walking the streets, talking nonsensically to himself. We think about the white celebrity who takes their life via suicide. We think about the white mass murderer who goes into a high school and takes the lives of innocent children. Rarely is it a black man like myself until now, because black mental health matters. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is black mental health and why is it differentiated amongst racial and ethnic lines? Black mental health are the individual and collective experiences that influence the wellness of a community. Trauma is the biggest influencer of black mental health, because we're often expected to just continue on because we are so resilient as a people, because we do survive, and we've survived for hundreds of years. And I was expected to survive and go into school that day and perform. And I did, because like many of us, I learned how to suppress my emotions and my feelings. But what if I didn't? What if I went into school and I started arguing with peers and fighting? What if I started arguing with the teachers? What if I did criminalistic behaviors within the community? Would I be deemed incorrigible and unable to be in the school setting, in the community setting? Or would anybody care that I just experienced this traumatic situation that has impacted me? I realized I had to change. I had to work on my wellness so I can be whole. It took approximately 10 years, because that's the average length of time that they say somebody who lives with mental wellness issues, that's the time that it takes for them to come to grips with it and to seek treatment. For black people, I think it's much longer. Will mental health continue to be viewed in America as Kate Spade, as Anthony Bourdain, as Chester Bennington, as Robin Williams? Would it now include actors Sam Sarpong, Lee Thompson Young? Will it now include 10-year-old Ashanti Davis, who took her life because of bullying? Will it now represent Emmanuel Sloan, who's the reason why I'm here? Because at 19 years of age, he decided to take his life by jumping in front of a train. This isn't an indictment on you or on America. This is just a public service announcement that's stating that we're here and we deserve to live and to thrive.
The one last thing I want to say is that having PTSD is okay. It's not a death sentence. It's not forever. And, you know, if you're experiencing it or you know someone who is, just know that they're not going to be in pain forever. You just have to use your strength to get help. And you deserve to live in peace.